Welcome to the Knowledge for Men show. Your life will never be the same.
Your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development.
I want to die empty of regret. I want to die empty of my best work. We don't understand who we are. Instead, we're living out somebody else's narrative.
What one man can do, another man can do. If it's been done, it can be done again.
Being yourself and being your truest, most authentic self in every moment. If it scares you or makes you a little afraid, do it. Follow your heart and your gut.
The first stage, I think, is finding you, like finding out who I am today.
Stuff will not work. You will have things that fail. Success is when you're a happy, fulfilled person. How do you define success?
It's your life, and you are the creator of the movie script that is your life story.
Attention, if you are a frustrated man who feels like he is not getting the results he wants in his life, health, wealth, relationships, and personal growth, then I've got a powerful free video training for you to help you become a strong, grounded man so you can unlock unlimited power in your life, business, and relationships. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get instant access to this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. If you want a Cliff Notes version of the best material that I've learned after 300 interviews on this podcast about being a stronger, more powerful man, then it's all here at kfmconfidence.com. All right, guys, welcome to the show. I'm here with Scott Carney. He's an investigative journalist and anthropologist who's worked in some of the most dangerous corners of the world. He's been featured in Men's Journal, Wired, Playboy, Discover, and Fast Company. He's also the author of What Doesn't Kill Us: How Freezing Water, Extreme Altitude, and Environmental Conditioning Will Renew Our Lost Evolutionary Strength. Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on, man.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. And Scott, we dive in every show with a favorite success quote or some sort of saying that the guest has lived by. So what do you got for us, and what does that mean for you?
Well, the one that I think is relevant to this book in particular is in the battle versus man versus nature, nature will always win. And that's something that Wim Hof, the man that this book is largely about, told me once. And it's sort of a cautionary quote because some of the things that I do in this book sound absolutely crazy. And it seems that in some ways you can almost become, impervious to nature. I mean, some people get that idea. And I want to begin with a word of caution that if you push these things too far, you can end up in trouble. But nonetheless, the struggle is very beneficial and still very interesting. So I think that's a good warning and also encouragement for what might happen in the rest of the show.
So nature will always win. And
yes.
How can we take this in and use this to benefit us, to make us stronger?
Well, the book I wrote, it's called What Doesn't Kill Us. And in it, I examine how all sorts of interactions with nature are actually very beneficial and necessary for who we are as humans. And, for some instance, something like the cold. Now, most of us live in this constant temperature of like 72 degrees, this constant comfort. And that is, something that we really like. We like the idea of being in this sort of static environment. But that's not where we evolved from. We evolved from this constant struggle, the 7 million year evolutionary journey, where our bodies were constantly engaging with nature and constantly struggling against these harsh stimuli. And we have this hidden biology that allows us to be resilient against those extremes. And so what I really want to tell people is that if you get out there and you get out of your comfort zone, you do things that seem possibly painful, they'll actually make you stronger. They will allow you to exist and even thrive in environments that seem, extreme.
Yeah. And would you say that today that life is just a lot easier, that man has it quite easy?
Absolutely. I mean, just look at what you're able to do on a daily basis. You wake up in your warm little bed, right? There's a big bed. You look outside and there's a blizzard and you turn up the thermostat. At night when it starts to get dark, you want more light to do work or whatever. You can turn on a light, and all of these things are just at the flip of a switch. We can travel around the world at the price of buying a ticket online. We have just so many advantages in terms of the resources available to us that life just seems easy. And what we stress out about, things like our retirement plans, our health care, our children's going to exactly the right school, or is this social media update going to portray me in the right light? These are things that we concern ourselves with, but those aren't the sorts of challenge that we evolved for, right? We didn't evolve to sit at a desk all day in this perfect environment. We evolved to struggle against our environment, to hunt food, to if there's a storm coming in, somehow survive those environmental stimuli. And that's what stress really is supposed to be. And we've sort of hijacked our stress responses for these very mundane life activities, and that is potentially dangerous for us, because we're engaging these fight or flight responses on a daily basis for things that are really not life threatening.
That's like, for example, let's say I'm about to go speak and I have social anxiety as being not really a life-threatening issue there. Or if I wake up and I'm out of toast, or there's no more milk, and my body starts freaking out. I'm like, no, what am I going to eat? These are more modern challenges, or perhaps even a breakup. I mean, I think it's very painful. I think it's very emotionally, it is a huge challenge, not discounting the struggle there, but to just live. I think about a man maybe 1,000 years ago, and I mean, his goal was to live, not live to live it up, but to just
actually
to stay
breathe.
alive. He's trying to survive. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
I am not. Tell me about it.
Okay, well, it's great. And for anyone on a computer, just go ahead and Google it and go to the images, and it's a triangle. And on the bottom, it says your physiological needs, which is breathing, food, water, sex, sleep, excretion, which is like going to the bathroom. And then as you go up, it goes into safety, which is like security of resources, security of self. And then up the triangles, like friends, family, sexual intimacy, which is like connection. And then it goes higher and higher all the way up to like self-actualization. And what I'm comparing this to is the bottom needs are almost a given to us today.
Right.
We don't have to necessarily fight for food. It can be you might not be able to get the type of food you want, but to eat food is not a struggle. You don't go to bed not knowing if there's going to be food in the Western world.
Sure, and in the world we live in today, for the whole stretch of human history, we had diseases of deficiency, and the struggle to find calories to consume and survive, or to find shelter, or to take care of that bottom of that pyramid that you're mentioning. But now that is totally factored out by our ingenuity over the centuries. We've gotten more and more technologically sophisticated, and yet those evolutionary systems that we use to deal with those literally life or death problems sort of checked off a list. Like, okay, we're done with finding shelter and getting food. So then we apply the stress to that next level on the pyramid, right? And we apply it to the one above that. And in many ways ineffectually, right? Because we haven't evolved to stress out about self-actualization at the top of your pyramid, right? We haven't evolved to do that. We were the reason we passed on our genes throughout history was because that our bodies were concerned with that lower level. But now the bodily challenges have migrated into mental challenges, and that undermines us. And let me give you an example, because people are probably wondering, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Right.
We have physiological responses to survive in the environment. One of them is something called vasoconstriction. Now, lining all of the arteries in your body are little tiny muscles that contract for two reasons. One, if you lose a limb, they'll contract to restrict the flow of blood so it doesn't leave that limb. And this is why soldiers survive in the field. You blow off one of their legs or cut off someone's leg with a sword, and those arteries are strong enough to stem the flow of blood. But an even more important thing that the body needs is vasoconstriction to restrict the flow of blood to the core when you're cold. So when you put your feet in ice water, for instance, you want to not die of hypothermia. So your body says, okay, we're going to sacrifice the extremities and we're going to keep your core warm. Now, that has been an evolutionary thing that has let us survive. But the only way to trigger vasoconstriction and actually work those muscles is to get cold. And because we don't do that, because most of us live in a constantly non-varying temperature where it's perpetual comfort, we never use those muscles. And that means that these muscles, these very vital muscles, we have 60,000 miles of these arteries and veins in our body. Those muscles never get exercised. They don't get used. And it's no shock that we have cardiovascular disease as one of the leading killers of people today. And it's just because we're not engaging with the environment. We don't realize that human health doesn't only rely on food and exercise. That's the way we've learned it throughout our whole lives, that you need to eat the right food, you need to have exercise, and then you'll be healthy. What we're forgetting is that there's the third pillar is that the environment that you actually inhabit has an equally important and profound impact on how your body functions. And instead, we just want to ignore that. We want to say, hey, I'm comfortable. Comfort must be good.
Right.
But that hides a certain element of physical suffering. And in the book, I explore tons of these systems where we've outsourced underlying biology or understimulated our biology. And for what? For a sense of sort of safety and comfort, which isn't bad, but it's now so easily available today that we're not really being human anymore. We're not really using our bodies the way they evolved.
It's really interesting because as you're talking, I'm thinking about my day, and I woke up this morning. It's raining outside here in San Diego, but I turned on the heater as I was getting ready. And then for maybe about 5 seconds walking to my car, I had to, handle the elements. And then I go into my car and the heater automatically knows the temperature and it turns on to the appropriate, warm temperature. And then I go into my, I probably have another 5 seconds from walking to the parking lot into my office. And then inside my office, the temperature is also adjusted. And so I'm kind of listening to what you're saying and going, yeah, you're right. I mean, technology is allowing us to live in comfort. However, I will add that I purposely take cold showers in the morning just because I think it always wakes me up and just feels good. I've never felt bad after doing it, but it certainly does suck still after several years of doing cold showers.
Well, the hardest thing a person can do, I think, in life is sit in a warm shower and turn that knob all the way cold. Like it's something that I think is very important to be able to, but it's a mental challenge just to be like, okay, we're going to go cold, even though the cold is going to be good. I know at the end I'm going to feel sort of like jazzed after getting out of and being stimulated of getting out of the cold shower. But the actual going from warm, perfect comfort to cold is it's still a challenge for me. And I've been doing this for like 6 years or something like that.
Wow. So it's harder than just hopping in and it's already cold.
I don't usually do it that way. I usually go from hot to cold in the shower. I would think it's I do a lot of things like I jump into cold streams, or I walk out or roll in the snow and things like that. But
so snow angels out there,
snow angels in the snow, right?
Yeah.
When it snows in Denver where I live,
okay,
I'll go out and I'll shovel the snow in just a pair of shorts and no shirt, no shoes, just go shovel.
What is your neighbors? Are they thinking you're insane? What's going on here?
At this point, I think at first I got a lot of weird looks, but I'm friendly with all my neighbors. We go out to each other. So now they know that the crazy guy who wrote that book about ice baths is on the street. And actually, funnily enough, now they're all taking ice baths.
Oh, it's great.
Now they're all going and doing this because, it's one of those things where it's one very easy way to stimulate your body. It's one very easy way to crack into your sort of this hidden biology and get stronger. In the course of this book that I wrote, I start with cold showers. I end up exercising throughout the winter in just a pair of shorts and shoes, Denver winter and places like that. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which is the highest point in Africa, wearing just a pair of shorts and shoes and maybe a hat I think I had on too.
Yeah.
And what I was doing to demonstrate this stuff is that these seemingly extreme things are just human abilities. They're things that we have underlying us. And I'm not like an athlete. I'm not like a super CrossFitter or anything like that. But just by using the environment to train myself, I was able to crack in to this underlying mechanisms that have allowed us to survive till now.
Yeah. I'm looking here at life expectancy, and I've always known that it's, obviously it's gone up, obviously with medical advances, but not too long ago in the 1800s was the average life expectancy. Do you know what it is?
1800s, I'm going to go for about 40. Is that right?
Yeah, about 38 years old. 40,
Mm-hmm.
41 is you're pushing it, like that. You're pushing your 80s in today's age. That isn't that long ago, and that to me is just wow. Like I would almost be at the end of my life here. Just I think for many of us listening, just to think about that, like 35. You're old. You're an old man at 35. You're an elderly at 35.
Although those statistics are often very skewed because of infant mortality, right? So when someone dies right when they're born, which is obviously a big problem when you don't have hospitals and interventions that we have today, those are definitely skewed very easily.
So a median would be a better statistic.
Would probably be a better statistic. But nonetheless, you are absolutely right. Like, people lived in general shorter periods of time in earlier times, and it's partially because it's a lot because that we have great technology to keep us alive now, right? We keep ourselves alive with medical interventions, with basic protection that we're able to afford ourselves.
I think food is so easy. You just order it now.
Right. We were struggling still against deficiencies back 100 years ago, right? And that was something that we solved really just in the last, really in the last 100 years. Those for the first world, that was solved, right? We're not going to really get famines in America or anything like that anymore. But by doing that, by solving those problems, conversely, now we get afflicted by different issues, right? Now we have this obesity epidemic. We have out of control diabetes. We have autoimmune illnesses, which existed in previous eras, but not at the same prevalence that we have now. And it's partially because we're living older, so our bodies are sort of just aging and breaking down. But it's also because our environments are not stimulating us to do things that they would have ordinarily.
Yeah, right. And so medical advances have certainly helped us live longer. However, it's made our lives in a way easier, which has then made us as men, is it safe to say, weaker?
Yes. Imagine going back, looking at your pasty skinned office mate, right? You're under fluorescent lights, right? And put him in a time machine, send him back 1,000 years or 2,000 years, right? And have him get a foot race or a wrestling match with anyone he meets, and he's going to lose so badly. Right? It's going to be
a daily workday. Like what I complain, if I'm complaining or if someone's complaining about their daily work day, compared to a daily work day, which is basically you're trying to survive for the day several hundred years ago. I think what it leads to is life, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is what I'm going off of, which is you're kind of just born into that. You're just born and all these things are available to you.
Right.
And it makes life easier, makes men weaker, which then I think it really breeds this whole, like, I want to say this instant gratification society where we just don't want to have to work really hard for things that are worth working for. Like we believe technology, a pill should just make us healthy. A pill should prevent us from having to deal with pain. Or even if I want to build a business, I should be able to read this book and it should happen.
Give you all the skills, right? Not the hard work to get into it, right? We want a pill to solve things, right? We want to look at, this is why every diet out there, all the really, really successful ones, and I mean commercially successful, are like, take a pill or eat more ginger or whatever, like tweak your fat intake. It's these sort of very simple things that are supposed to totally revolutionize your life, not the idea like you need to reevaluate the way you inhabit the world. Like that's a different set of issues. But I do think that we have this underlying desire in the world to face challenges. I mean, look at the rise of obstacle course races around the world, right? These are things that people like. I sit at an office all day. I don't even have a standing desk. I just sit down, but I want a feeling of being a real animal, and so then you go crawl under barbed wire, you jump over barriers, you get shocked by electric things, and that gives you this sense of physical accomplishment. But it's not fun, really. I mean, parts of it are fun, but what you're trying to do is essentially suffer in these things. And in that suffering, there is something that fun comes out. You trigger adrenaline, you trigger norepinephrine and all these like nice hormones in your body. But the actual experience of, getting scraped by barbed wire is not a good one. And I think one of the problems specifically for the type of things you're looking at is that we're missing rituals for manhood in the United States and the rest of the world. Like, we don't have these big epic challenges where you go from obviously being a boy to obviously being a man. Yeah. And so some of the things, this is one reason why people join the army, right? Yeah. You join the army and you're in sports, obstacle course races, or, foreign travel in hard places. Like, we crave to know what our limits are. We crave to know, well, what could we do if we got outside of our comfort zone? And I think that's a very normal human experience and human desire to experience the full range of our capabilities and to match ourselves up either against other people, but more importantly, just match ourselves up against ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we as men, we do have a desire to face challenges. I think we respond well to challenges. Like right now, if I say, guys, I have a challenge for you. I want you to do 7 days of cold showers. Those who take me up on this offer, give me an email and tell me your experience, which for those who want to take me up on that, go ahead and do that. Andrew@knowledgeformen.com. But I feel like if I challenge someone, men stand, they hear it. It's like they're called forward to it. If you look at military recruitment posters, it's a challenge. Right. The copy, the sales copy, the text, it's a challenge. It's like, are you man enough for this? Can you handle the best? Can you run with the best? And
be all you can be, right?
Exactly. Yeah. The test, men want to know where they stand. I think one of the reasons why myself included and so many others love martial arts, especially mixed martial arts, is because it's where you stand. The end of that match, you either won or you lost, and it's all you one-on-one. Whereas maybe some other sports, it's a team effort, which is absolutely important. But in martial arts, I mean, where you stand. You won or you lost. It's very clear.
But for me, in those challenges, right, I'm not really energized by someone being better than me or being better than someone else. I mean, I think that some people do really like that competitive feeling. But for me, it's, can I do better than what I was before, right? Yeah. That to me is more important, because there are a billion people out there who are better than me at lots of stuff, right? And only I know what I'm capable of. And a part of this journey of being alive in general is becoming the best person we can. So sometimes that sort of macho competitive I find very unappealing, because I don't need to, beat up the four-eyed weakling, right, to make me feel like a better human being, right? What I need to do is, know where I was before and do better, and maybe help that four-eyed weakling become slightly better at what they were doing. And that to me is what energizes me. But I do hear what you're saying. At the end of the day. And this is probably why a lot of martial artists are actually very friendly with one another outside the ring, right? Is why those relationships aren't always antagonistic, is that they can have that fight, and then at the end of the day, they're still badass martial artists, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think we as men want to know that, want to know what we can do, want to know what can we handle. I think fighting is a very intimate experience. It's one-on-one. It's very intimate, and you'll notice even at the highest level in the UFC, when two people are, they do the weigh-ins and they're almost like fighting each other at the weigh-ins. It looks very unprofessional. They're kind of yelling at each other like it's the WWE or but then after the fight, even going into the fight, they're yelling at each other before the fight, and it's very, I'm not sure if they're really just doing it to increase anticipation for the fight, but at the end of the fight, they're hugging each other. Right. Because it's so intimate that you're so connected to that person that, there's a connection. It's a deeper level of intimacy. And,
absolutely. I can't get more intimate than punching someone in the face, right?
Or being on the ground trying to rip his arm off. But nonetheless, coming back to this conversation of men responding well to challenges, I think it's because life is easy and we desire for challenge. We put ourselves out into a little bit of danger to experience life.
Absolutely. And that's been a guiding goal for my life since I was, a young kid. One of the first major, adventures that I had is I lived for a year in India when I was just about 18 years old. And doing that, overcoming the constant challenges and constant stimulation of, just crossing the streets dangerous in India, right? And then meeting all types of people. And eventually, I was like a war correspondent too, right? And I investigated criminal markets for human organs over the years and investigated mafia and things. And I think part of that drive is just because I really like interesting stories. But the other part is the challenge of doing it, right? It's the challenge of going in and trying something that pushes so deep against what my capabilities are and coming out with a great story at the end of it has been, one of my driving motivations for everything I've done. Luckily, I've written books about most of it.
That's great. Yeah, you can actually share those experiences. What I want to come to a conclusion here is, or something to, a really powerful takeaway for the audience listening is, if we can somehow look at physical suffering or even emotional suffering as a way of growth rather than it is a detriment. But this is me, like in your book, your subtitle, or your entire title, what doesn't kill us. What I'm taking from that is, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger is what I'm thinking you're leading to, but really tapping into that lost evolutionary strength.
Right. Well, there's this idea right out there called hormesis, which is a word that says when you're challenged by something, when you're given an external stressor, that the first response that your body has is to mount a defense to that and say, okay, I have a toxin in my body, or I have this cold stimulation or some sort of stress coming in. The first thing that happens is you become more alive. Your immune system jumps up, your adrenaline comes up, and you actually become a stronger person. Now, with more and more exposure to that, you gain more and more resistance, but you can still push it to a point where it can be dangerous. But staying within that level of hormesis where you get that bonus changes you, because it moves the baseline in everything, and you become just more and more robust. This is why in the book I went from somebody who could do like 20 push-ups, and I was living in LA at the time and couldn't really deal with temperature variation. I ended up learning this breathing technique. I ended up learning how to control my body temperature in the snow, and ended up doing some pretty fantastic things over time. And it's because I was dealing with that temporary bonus of adversity. I learned how to control pain and control my fight or flight responses, the response your body has to external stress, and modulate that over time. And the more times you experience stress, the more control you have over that.
I think that's a key point. I would underline that if I was taking notes. The more experience you have with stress, just the easier you'll be able to handle it more. There's this book that is one of my favorite books. It's called Courage, The Joy of Living Dangerously by Osho. And he has this quote about courage and about moving into danger. And it says something like, courage is to move on dangerous paths. Life is dangerous and only cowards can avoid the danger. But then they're already dead. A person who is alive, really alive, vitally alive, will always move into the unknown where there is danger. But he will take that risk. The heart is always ready to take the risk. The heart is a gambler. The head is a businessman. The head always calculates. It's cunning. Yeah. The heart is non-calculating. Osho, the joy of living dangerously. He's an Indian philosopher.
Also a cult leader who tried to poison people in Beaverton, Oregon, and investigated.
Wait, were we talking about the same guy?
We're talking about Rajneesh Osho. You're talking about you should look into his biography, because this guy is messed up. He ran a sex cult. He stole all the money from his followers. Had a collection of Bentleys. He is exactly the opposite sort of person that I talk about in the book. I mean, there are so many charlatans out there, and I'm not saying his quote's bad. Actually, that quote was great.
Quote was great, and I am not aware of. I need to do more research on this guy because I love his writing. Oh wow! But nonetheless, it looks like he's done some bad things. But this quote is awesome, and I think what I'm getting from this quote is that we often run away from danger, and I think danger can be a path that leads us to more of where we want to go, and can sometimes be a sign of where to go, a guide, perhaps.
Absolutely. I mean, I 100% agree with that. It's important to face these things and to learn from them.
So what can be some examples of physical suffering that someone might be undergoing right now, or emotional suffering, and how they can, in their minds, reframe this to be a part of their journey, to be a part of their growth, to be a part of what makes them stronger?
Well, one of the things that we've been sort of dancing around in this conversation is that there's and that pyramid that you're speaking about,
Maslow's,
right? If you're undergoing sort of the stresses of modern society, right, which are all of those, my girlfriend broke up with me, or I'm, my retirement plan isn't robust enough, and these sorts of things, we can end up really cycling our businessman-like minds over that stuff, and that can be the thing that sort of takes us down and ratchets up anxiety, which is a physical thing. Anxiety is not just mental; that's your body going haywire, right? By giving yourself other sorts of stresses that are physical, that are more tangible, you can distract those anxiety reflexes. Because what anxiety sort of is your body trying to defeat a physical effect, right? It's literally your fight or flight responses. It's
right.
These heightened awareness, these heightened feelings. But because we are using fight or flight to deal with real world, mundane world problems, it's sort of always keeping that on. It's always keeping that adrenaline on. And so what you can do, and what I recommend in the book, is take something like a cold shower, right? Take something, or work out so hard that you do a HIIT workout that's really hard, and give your body, communicate directly with your body and say, this is stress. This is the stress you should be, milling over, and let that mind deal with those more esoteric things with a different type of system. And this is why, after you've done a great workout, why you might be bone tired, but you also feel really good after it. When you are pushed to the limit, say running, for instance, you're not going to be musing about these other things. You're just totally in touch with your body.
Right.
And in the book, what we do is taking a cold shower, jumping into an ice bath, and you're on the San Diego, you said. I believe the Pacific's pretty cold right now. If you jumped into the Pacific and hung out there for 5 minutes,
all right,
right? You're gonna not be thinking about your social media update, right? what you're gonna be thinking about is, okay, this is cold and I have to control myself in this cold, because I'm going to be here for 5 minutes. I've already told myself that I'm going to be here, and I'm going to find a way and my body is going to find a way to deal with this. And I promise you, it won't kill you, right? That 5 minutes in the Pacific Ocean, unless you're getting eaten by a shark, which would kill you, the temperature is not going to get you. And yet you're giving your body a stress to work against. And that's a really, really important thing to be able to do. And if you look at that Pacific Ocean, that 5 minutes in the Pacific, if you look at that as something that's terrifying to you, then there's a real problem, right? There's a real problem if you think that just jumping into some water is going to ruin you. And if you worry more about the water than your social media update, you should get there right now.
Yeah, I think I'm going to accept your challenge.
I like it.
Yeah, I love just jumping in the water when it's cold. I mean, it's usually cold, even it's cold most of the time, but
right.
except the summer. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a go. What do you think a life would be like without stress? So if someone's goal was, I just want no stress. Like I want to avoid all stress from my life. I want to avoid anything that is stressful. I just want to be 100% stress-free. I don't want problems in my life.
That sounds like a horrible life, doesn't it? It sounds like, I don't know, if you go on vacation, right, and you're in this totally ideal, Tahitian village or wherever you might go on vacation, doesn't after a few days of that, don't you feel really antsy and you want to get back to your work life? This is something that happens to me all the time. I'll go on a vacation, it's supposed to be restful, and I get really tired from it because we want challenges, and challenges are not bad, right? Challenges make us better people. And if I spent my whole life in a padded white room with no input, but also no stress because there was nothing really that was problematic, then I wouldn't be living my life. So I would actually find that stressful, right? There is
a stress-free life is stressful.
it absolutely is, because you want to do things,
right? Of course.
You want to be a human, and being a human is encountering the dangers and the problems and the complexity of the planet. And if we're unable to do that, if we just want to shoo ourselves off in this static world, we're not being human. We're just being afraid. We just don't want to express ourselves. So I don't think there is the possibility of stress-free on the planet. I think that we're always responding to stuff, and even in perfect comfort, that can hide weakness, that can hide damage. There is no ideal state, like a sensory deprivation chamber. Living my life out, and that does not sound good to me.
Yeah. And I hear you about you often dream of the vacation when you're really working hard. You're like, oh, I can't wait. You got your flight booked. You're like, oh, I can't wait. You get on the plane. I can't wait. You check in your hotel. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. You have a few great nights. And then after a while, I completely relate. You're like, all right, let me check email. Right. I think it's absolutely beneficial to clock out and have that time, but
yes.
Not to just be a workhorse all the time, but yeah, no, I totally relate to that. So can we say here, to avoid stress is to avoid life?
Yes, absolutely. And stress, that word stress has this negative connotation on it, but it doesn't need it. Stress is a challenge to overcome. It's a challenge to accept and to grow from. And it's a lot about perspective. If you look at a negative thing that happens to you, and you think that is going to destroy you or make you a worse or weaker person because of it, it may actually end up doing that, right? It could actually do. But if you have a perspective on it, which is, I'm going to just do it, I'm going to try to get through this, you have a lot better chance of coming out as a better person for that. I mean, you talked about starting a business and how people want to just press a button and make their millions of dollars, right. But that's not how millions of dollars are made, right? Usually, I guess you could get born into it, but if you really want to be a successful person, you have to go through the challenge. You have to fail. We have to fail a lot. You have to make tons of mistakes, and then you persevere, and you might be able to make it. You might be able to achieve your goal. Obviously, not everyone becomes a millionaire who tries to, right? But no one ever became a millionaire by not making mistakes and just doing everything right every time. The people who are really good at this learn, and learning is through adversity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'm getting from this is to not wish or desire to have a problem-free life. Like, life would be great if only this problem was not in my life, but to just view that problem as a part of life.
Yeah. And, pick good problems too. That's also really important. Picking the challenge that you will dedicate your mental energy on and planning out that is very important, which is why, when we talk about these physical challenges, you can predictably jump into that ice water. Right? You can predictably give yourself a hard thing to do and overcome that, and that give yourself a sense of accomplishment. You can't take on every problem in the world, but you can sort of plan the things that are going to stress you and things that are going to challenge you, mm-hmm. and work up from that.
What about when we have unexpected problems, when something happens to us?
The world is full of terrible things, right? There's anyone who tells you that you can avoid all the negativity or avoid death or avoid, your parents dying or sickness that's a lie, right? Our lives, every person's life ends ultimately in tragedy, and there are negative things that happen all the time. But the only thing that matters in life is how you deal with those things, mm-hmm. right? And how you use the situation that you're in right now, whatever that is, how you make the most of those moments. Mm. And, some people have much worse starting moments than others, right? Some people are very lucky and their lives are generally easy. And some people's lives are unlucky and they generally face adversity. Some of that can be deserved on both sides and some of it is undeserved. But the only thing that we have control over is how we deal with those things and how we make choices as we go forward. And I think that the goal of living life is trying to live a good life, doing the best you can with what you have.
Very beautifully said. I couldn't agree more than what you just shared. Let's dive into the knowledge round. Just going to ask you a few more rapid fire questions here, Scott. So are you ready?
Sure.
All right.
I'm ready. Go.
Have you ever felt like you weren't the strong, grounded man that you know you're capable of becoming? Like there's something more inside of you, but you don't know how to get it out. Me too. Years ago, I was broke, sleeping on my brother's couch, and just got out of a serious breakup that left me on the floor for months. Now, I have a multiple six-figure business. I'm in the best shape of my life, have an abundant dating life, and live on the beach here in San Diego. I want you to break through too and create the life that you want. And because people kept asking me so many questions, I've created this free video training series on becoming a strong, grounded man so that you can have more freedom, love, and connection in your life. I'll also teach you how to build real backbone to boost your masculinity as a man so that you can have more respect, power, and confidence personally and professionally. Simply go to kfmconfidence.com to get this training. Again, that's kfmconfidence.com. Also, I share the #1 conversation that your father never had with you about women. That will be a major wake-up call for 90% of you and will improve the quality of your relationships forever. Go to kfmconfidence.com to get this free training today. Welcome to the Knowledge Round, where the guests will be asked rapid-fire questions to give the audience invaluable pieces of wisdom to help transform their lives. Starting in 3, 2, 1, showtime.
First question I have for you is, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling really lost or kind of unsure of their purpose, lacking a sense of direction, perhaps?
That's hard, right? Because, we all lose direction for different reasons. And I think you need to understand why you've lost direction to some degree. And I think maybe taking mental space is very important. Focusing on your breath, that's the most basic meditation in the world. Because if you're so caught up running some sort of like rabbit, what do you call it, a hamster wheel of anxiety, you can miss opportunities as you go forward, and missing opportunities can be bad for you. Mm-hmm. So I think that finding your center is the first thing that needs to happen for anyone who's just spinning out of control.
Very good. And what do you think is holding most men back from becoming stronger, grounded men today?
Taking on challenges that they can overcome. One of the key problems in the world is being too comfortable, being too at ease with where we are, and then not trying to push our limits in whatever way that is most effective for you, because everyone has different desires and different goals in life. But trying to push out of that comfort zone is the only way to find growth.
I love that. What's something that you do in the morning as a routine that helps you get ready for the day?
Oh, this is great. This is perfect, because this is very much part of the book that we sort of wandered all around. But I start every morning with cold shower, and I do a 15-minute breathing routine that puts me in a very positive place. And it's going to be hard to explain why this works, since we didn't really go into the details in the book. But what it is I hyperventilate for about 30 seconds, like long, deep hyperventilations with 1 second in, 1 second out. And I'll do 30 of those until I'm sort of lightheaded. I'm lying down. And then I exhale all the air from my lungs, and I hold my breath for as long as I can. And usually the first time I do it's about a minute. And then I'll do 3 rounds of this, where I'll do 1 minute breath hold, then I'll hyperventilate, and then a 2-minute breath hold, and I'll hyperventilate, and then I'll do a 3-minute breath hold. And that puts me in this very open place, because I'm challenging myself to how long can I hold my breath. And at the end of that, I'll do 1 more of those hyperventilation routines, and I'll let all the air out of my lungs, and I'll start doing push-ups. And I usually do about 50 push-ups when I do this. And that's my morning routine, where I'm sort of beginning the day by putting sort of this stress on my body and then showing that I can overcome those goals.
Yeah, I like it. I'll have to give it a try. What's your #1 strategy for overcoming procrastination? Perhaps you're writing and you just can't write and you don't feel like writing. What do you do?
So I'm a big fan of not worrying too much about that. Well, I procrastinate a hell of a lot. And I think what the most important thing in productivity for me is I have a long-term strategy, a long-term goal. And let's say it's writing a book, right? And I say that I will have one very modest goal, which is I write 500 words a day when I'm writing a book, which is like a page, not very much. And after I'm done with that one goal, that one thing that I had to do, I can do whatever I want with the rest of the day, because at the end, my strategy will pay off, because in 8 months, I'll have a book written, and it works. And I think that a lot of times people who feel like they're procrastinating aren't realizing they're actually musing on things. They're actually still learning things even in that procrastination. But the goal really should be a good strategy as where you'll get to, and then break that up into the very most modest components. And you can find that you can accomplish really, really big things by doing very, very small things.
Yeah, breaking it down. I like that strategy. And what would you say? Well, your books here, you have quite a few, but I want to give credit. So if you go to Amazon, Scott Carney, Carney, and What Doesn't Kill Us is mainly what we've been talking about in this episode, but you also have The Red Market, A Death on Diamond Mountain, and A Quick and Dirty Guide to Freelance Writing. All right, but what have been 3 of your most influential books and why?
So my favorite book of all time is Old Man and the Sea, because it's about one guy striving against the sea, coming up with some fish, and then losing that fish, right? They're losing that one thing that he loved. But it was about the struggle, which is, so important. And that is, by far the favorite book that I've probably ever read. And it's Hemingway, and it's beautifully written. He uses very simple sentences. Another book that I love is The Tiger by John Valiant, if you've ever read it, which is about a big cat in Siberia that takes revenge on on somebody who shot it. And it's a true story. And it's just a rip-roaring discussion of a tiger's life. And a third book, well, I mean, if we're not going by mine,
yeah,
let's say Hampton Side's Kingdom Beyond the Kingdom of the Ice, about a polar explorers expedition that failed horribly and where everyone died. But they're sort of tales about trying to survive in the ice against adversity that really did kill them in the end is just, it's a marvel of human ingenuity and endurance.
Yeah.
So
really,
there's 6 books.
Nice. I'll have to check out some of those books. I haven't heard of all of them. And now this one is now more of a scenario. So imagine you had 60 seconds with 25-year-old Scott. If you could envision where he's at right now, personally, professionally, relationships.
Sure.
What would you tell him to do, knowing what you now know today? And what would you tell him not to do?
I mean, there's one thing that I would say sort of tongue in cheek is that just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you need to stay in one. But I think that's actually a mean question because essentially I think everything I've done in my life has led me to where I am today. And even the mistakes that I made have led me here. So I would just say do what you're doing. And to me, because it all adds up to where I am now. And if you try to change something in the past or give yourself some sort of advice, it might backfire. Although maybe invest in Apple stock.
Sure. And just to go back to, just because you're in a relationship doesn't mean you need to stay in one. Why did you bring that up?
Oh, I mean, I think I married too young at first. I got married when I was 27, but I started dating the woman at that age. And I think I had this idea about marriage being like sort of happily ever after. And once you start it, you have to be in it forever. And honestly, one of the hardest things I ever did was get divorced after 10 years. And because the relationship didn't need to survive, right? That the relationship, I think it was more about other people than about me. And you get, what I mean by that is when you get married, there's all this pressure from people being like, okay, you did this, you made this decision. Right. And that I didn't really even conceive that I could get out of it. So I think I stayed in it too long. And I think it was bad for the two of us because of that. But I also think that, you have to make mistakes. And even if that did happen, it doesn't mean that at the end, when I finally did leave, it was necessarily a bad thing. So it's a very, I think that is something that people struggle with a lot, right? When you're in a relationship, when it ends, how you deal with that in a sane way. I mean, people struggle all the time.
Yeah. I just thought maybe there's some people listening who are like, I wanted to hear more about that. And so that's why I asked. Something I've been really playing with is just that, because I asked that question and I would say almost half the audience will say something similar to like, hey, I wouldn't change very much except for maybe this one thing. It's like a joke or something. That all paths lead to success, and that there's not one door that if you open it is this pot of gold, but that I believe that all paths, even the path that you take that has this horrible thing, this crisis, or even
Sure.
a tragedy, that all paths in the end can lead to success if you just keep moving and learning and growing and just doing the right things here. But to think that I took the wrong path in life and that it's over. It's over, and I should have done this, and that door would have led me to riches and great relationships. All paths lead to success. It's just a matter of finding your way along that path.
Well, all paths can lead to success because, to say that failure is impossible, or, people do have bad outcomes in their life, right? Right. that certainly happens. So I think to promise people that no matter what they will have success is wrong. But I think it's how you define success, which might be different, right? Not everyone's going to become a millionaire, but everyone has the potential to be happy, I think.
Okay. I see where you're going. Yeah. I think that some paths we might face an obstacle where we think it's just, we should have done that. Whereas I think that, hey, maybe this obstacle happened, but if we keep moving, learning, and growing, we can still achieve some great things in our lives.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's potential has the ability to be great at something, right? Yeah. We're all, individuals. We're all different. And because we're all different, we have the potential to express that difference in a really positive way.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And speaking of challenges, I think a big challenge, sometimes I'm experiencing challenges in my business. I'm like, oh man, why is this happening? This sucks. And you look on the news, and even at the highest level, like perhaps, for instance, Elon Musk, one of his spaceships blew up on takeoff. That's $120 million down the drain. Not to mention all the time that went into building that, and all the salary and all this that you had to pay your people. Right. That's a mistake. And this guy is an expert. He's one of the greatest entrepreneurs of our time, and he's still legitimately blowing up in not even in space, just on just right there on the launch pad. Many years ago when I worked for Target as a manager, I remember they were trying to get into Canada, and that they're one of the biggest retailers in the country, and they lost billions of dollars in trying to get into Canada, which ultimately failed, and it was billions of dollars lost. And that's you would think at the highest level that they would know, but they're still taking a risk and still making mistakes at the highest level.
Yeah, and that's where you learn, right? You take risks, and risks don't always pay off, right? That's why they're risks. But if you don't take risks, then you don't have the opportunity to go big. And so it's, I think a lot of people choose to be safe. And I don't think there's anything wrong with necessarily, especially like in an investment strategy, but there's nothing wrong with being safe, but sometimes you need to push yourself. Sometimes you need to take a risk, and you just need to take a smart one. And it may not pay off, but it's worth it to try. It's worth it to give it the best, and do your due diligence. Try as hard as you can to be sure that this is a good bet you're making. And they do work. I've had many bets pay off that have ended up wonderful for me, and I've certainly lost some too. And same with Target, same with Elon Musk. The people who are successful lose sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as we're coming to a conclusion here, even if you have to summarize any main points, completely fine. What would you say is your philosophy on life and success?
I think that it's you need to live your life to the fullest given what you have, and focusing on being a good person, whatever that means because everyone's baseline is different, but doing the best with what you have is the most important. We're only given certain tools, and some people have advantages, some people have disadvantages, but nonetheless, we're all given this one life that we live in, and it doesn't matter what happens. And if there's an afterlife, if there's a God, if there's a Buddha, if there's whatever happens afterwards, the only thing that we're gonna be judged on, I guess. The only thing that's important is how you are right now and how you're interacting with people right now. And are you doing the right thing right now? And if you have a whole life of thinking in the moment of right now, then you're going to have a good life.
Well said. Very good. And now, what's exciting you today? What are you looking forward to in the, new year?
Oh man, I think this year's just going to be fantastic. Mm-hmm. I think I've been able to. People are reading this book, and the word is spreading out about it. And, I get these messages on Twitter all the time and on Facebook of, hey, Scott, I just took a cold shower for the first time, and it was horrible. but I loved it. And I think those are just so fantastic. And I really like that this is influencing people's lives and it's making them, reevaluate things. And not everyone is able to jump out of their comfort zone in the same way or at the same time. But I think people are challenged. And I love that. And I think that there's going to be so many great opportunities that come out of this. And I think that it's nice to have something that reaches and affects people. And I think I'm very fortunate and very grateful to have had this opportunity.
Yeah, I love the message. I really do. And I think it really resonates with my audience here. And for all the listeners, you can follow up with Scott at scottcarney.com. That's Scott, CARNEY.com. You can also throw it in Google and pretty much everything pops up. His books, his social media, and of course his website. And Scott, it's been a pleasure having you here on the show, sharing a bit about yourself and your lessons learned on your journey here with my community.
Thank you so much. It was great being here. And, anytime you want to talk, let's wrap a little while.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge for Men podcast. Hundreds of interviews and millions of downloads later, we're continuing to build an international movement and we're just getting started. So if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes because it really helps the podcast grow so we can impact even more men in the world who need this. Guys, this is all about living with purpose, where every day you only do things that matter to you. You wake up, live with purpose, and take massive action towards the life you want. And always remember, love the life you have while creating the life of your dreams. Go to kfmfree.com to get a surprise bonus I've made for my listeners. Again, that's kfmfree.com for something that's changed my life, and I'm offering it to you for free. Also, check out my Amazon best-selling books that I've written for you to help you crush life at kfmauthor.com. Again, that's kfmauthor.com to see all the books I've created to help you break through in life. This is your host, Andrew Farabee, founder of knowledgeformen.com, and I'll see you in the next episode.